For many Tesla investors, the most important critical limitation to Tesla's growth is their access to batteries. Well, last week, CATL, the largest battery supplier to Tesla, officially opened its new massive battery plant near Giga Shanghai. And when I say near, they literally are just spitting distance from each other. This new CATL plant has a staggering output of 80 gigawatt hours. This is enough to supply about 800,000 vehicles per year. With the 4680 ramp also now gearing up, which we will review, 2024 is going to be a banger year. Welcome, everybody. This is Brighter with Herbert, and today we've got Hans Nelson joining us. He has his own YouTube channel called Hans Nelson. Welcome, Hans. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Herbert?
I'm doing fantastic. So obviously the batteries, I believe, are the biggest issue that's facing Tesla, and we know that 4680 has been slower to progress as we wanted to. So this news that CATL's opened up is a big deal. Let's take a look at what we are seeing here. So first of all, we've got this news that about last week, the battery plant, which is near Giga Shanghai, was complete and ready to go. We're going to see videos of the actual plant itself, but 800,000 vehicles per year, that's how much they can output. Now, we don't know yet if this is all going to go to Tesla because they have partnerships with many car companies. They are the largest provider of batteries right out there right now. But look how close they built this. This is the CATL Factory. It literally is next door to Tesla. So that must mean something, right? Hans, what do you think?
Yeah. So, and I think it's important to note it could be significantly more. It's approximately 800,000 vehicles. But it looks like that is estimating that you've got about 100 kilowatt hour pack in each vehicle. And we could definitely see, if Shanghai starts bringing out the next generation platform vehicle, those could be, much, much lower. I think right now Tesla's averaging 75. And so even at the 75, they would get many more vehicles. If they were to take up all 80 of those batteries from CATL, then they would produce significantly more than 800,000 vehicles. And then the smaller that they make those packs, the more vehicles that actually translates into. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, I think this is really great proof that Elon has just, he's seen things so clearly for so long. Think back to when Giga Nevada was announced, and it was, roughly 30 gigawatt hours nameplate capacity. And that was more than the entire battery production of the world in the year prior to that. And now we're seeing these giant gigafactories continually being announced by different companies, continually being produced. And it's cool to see other companies participating in this mission to transition the world to sustainable energy, even if it is from China. And, I think one of the things that it makes me very thankful for is the fact that Elon decided to create Tesla with its headquarters here in the United States, because if it was not for Tesla, China saw a lot of this on the wall a lot further back than the United States did. And they have been taking these steps to actually not only be strong, but to dominate globally the infrastructure that's necessary to win in a world where clean energy is the future, where clean energy replaces fossil fuels. And, I think China is much further down the path of being completely energy independent and not being shackled to geopolitics in the Middle East. And a lot of these other things that we're seeing are very, very important right now than the United States has been. Thankfully, Tesla is a leader, and we have the ability to catch up in a lot of ways. The IRA has been great in bringing a lot of that investment and reshoring that infrastructure here to the United States. But I think that, it's both a great sign that Tesla's mission has been 100% on the mark. It's a scary sign that China is so far ahead of the United States in many ways. But it's a good challenge for us to say, we need to be opening up battery plants of that size and magnitude more often here in the United States, and we need to get them ramping quicker, because that's the one thing that, the construction of this factory was very fast. We'll see how fast the ramp up of production of batteries in that factory is. But I'm expecting that also to be fast. And we need to be matching that in the Western world, not just here in the United States, but across Europe and all over the world as well. So I think it's a challenge on both of those fronts.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the actual factory itself. I'll play some clips there. And what's really interesting about this was that this was launched in they broke ground February of 2022. So that is basically a year and a half. And what you're seeing here is now the launch. You know how fast they can really develop these factories. So this was pretty impressive. They spent $440 million, which doesn't sound like a lot, honestly, to build a battery plant. And like you said, China is all in. Now, the fact that they're really close to Tesla, and that Tesla is really the number one sales leader for electric vehicles by far, means that the vast majority of these batteries are going to go to Tesla first. So
yes, very
any
likely.
Thoughts any thoughts?
I would definitely agree with that. That as you were alluding to earlier, the proximity to Tesla means that Tesla's the primary customer. Like, you don't build it farther away from your primary customer, you build it closer. It just reduces all the logistics costs. And so that's a clear indication that at least the majority of Tesla is the biggest customer. We'll see. My guess is it takes more than half of all of the battery production that comes out of that plant, and that it'll be less than half that ends up getting distributed across all of, Tesla, China's got a ton of different EV. How many have we mentioned already just today that are in there? You got, NIO and XPeng and BYD. It's potential that CATL is, having some of their own in-house EV production stuff. Then Huawei. I think I've heard that they were trying to get it down to where they only had roughly 300 EV manufacturers in China. So there's a lot of different innovation that's going on there. And that will continue to grow over time. It's a low-end disruption. But Tesla is, as they are moving further and further down the price curve, they're putting more and more and more pressure from the top down. And really what I think this spells is I think there's a bright future for some EV companies in China. And we've talked about this for a long time. There's a bright future and not only just in China, but in the rest of the world. There's a bright future for Tesla because it's coming down from the top. China's coming up from the bottom. And the people who are the most in trouble are all of the rest of the companies. So Volkswagen, GM, Ford, Toyota, all these other companies that don't have a compelling EV future, and they don't have, you have to have a moat where you can defend or a segment of the customer base that will buy your product over any other product for a good reason, that you can have that beachhead, and then you can expand that over time. And China and Tesla both have those beachheads, but legacy auto doesn't, and they're just getting eaten alive.
Yeah. So the good news is Tesla is well positioned, as we said. They are. If you see this, watch this again. It's interesting that they actually have a test track right in the actual area. And I want to give a shout out to Wuwa, WUWA. He has a YouTube channel. He's the one that's taking all these drone videos for us. This is where we got it from. Wuwa, WUWA. This is where this came from. So they have this test track right here, which is really, really cool. And so they will, spit out these batteries and get it going. So let's take a look at another video that he shared. And this is in CATL Shanghai, that they're already testing this car. So this is not just launched, it's actually already producing, and they're already testing a car. So what we wanted to know is, what is this car? Where is it coming from? And so we kind of take a look at this, and it looks like that is a new car is being tested at the newly built CATL Shanghai, and it's a Huawei CATL JV joint venture called the Avatar 12, and it's an all-electric sedan, and expected to arrive already in the showrooms by November. And it's going to launch in overseas market in the future. So they are starting off with their high-end, high-premium cars. This is what it looks like. It's not bad. I think it's BMW designed. Is what I understand it to be. Yeah, there it is. BMW X6 designer, 715 kilometers. Huawei Avatar 12. And yeah, CATL is the world's largest power battery makers. 36.9% share of the all the batteries being sold from January to August, and this is according to recent data. So, what do you think about that? That obviously they're testing out these cars at this point, and what do you think about that car that we just showed?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that that's a Huawei. It really does show that EVs are computers on wheels. Tesla has already shown this. And so for Huawei, which is one of the leading digital equipment manufacturers in China, to be really entering this space, that's the type of competitor that I'd be very scared of as a BMW or a Volkswagen. Because now not only do you have domestically Tesla's coming after you, but in China you have, because thinking about VW specifically, look at the giant mess that their Carriod group has been and how hard technology has been for them to figure out. And there's a lot of bears on the street who think competition is this universal thing, and they assume that competition is going to come from the incumbent players. And that's just not how technological disruption works. And so I do think that there will be competition that Tesla will face over time, but it's not going to be when people say, "Hey, the market cap of Tesla compared to all these legacy auto companies, like the multiples don't work. They're assigned way too much value per car that they deliver, and all this stuff." Those are nonsensical arguments because those companies are structurally incapable of producing compelling electric vehicles that the market will actually demand. And so the market is pricing in the fact that, most of these companies are more likely to die than not. It's just not a safe place to keep capital over the long term.
So CATL is actually launching another battery type called Shensheng. Ultra fast charging batteries, an LFP battery, and this company called Cherry is going to be the first automaker to adopt it. They plan to. This is going to another one that's going to go selling it overseas already. We're starting to hear more and more of the Chinese car companies going overseas, Europe, Middle East, Asia, and North America even. Interesting. So it's going to be the battery is going to be first used in the Cherry's models. These are the premium Exceed branded models. And then the battery is an LFP. They unveiled it in August. Very fast charging. It can get 400-kilometer range. I think that's about 230 miles on a 10-minute charge. And it's the first world's LFP battery to support 4C charging. C refers to the charging multiplier. 4C means the battery can be charged in a quarter of an hour. Fast charging, pretty decent range, and they're going to offer in the premium. Thoughts on that bit of news?
That's really exciting to see coming from the LFP chemistry, because LFP is so much more scalable, and it's also a cheaper chemistry to produce than the nickel-based chemistries. And so I'm really excited to see that battery technology development that's going on in China. And then I'm also, if CATL is figuring out this stuff, that there are similar technological advancements that are being developed by Tesla for whether it's for LFP chemistries or whether it's for various chemistries for the 4680 format. That China likes to be a little bit more public with a lot of those announcements and developments, because they want people to view them as leaders in that space. Tesla obviously has been a little bit slower in rolling out the 4680 than we had hoped, but they are also, pushing the boundaries of development, not only in form factor, but in chemistries with the Dawn group. And it's really exciting to see these chemistries become much more scalable, just pulling in ARC a little bit, writing down Wright's law, the cost curve, that we're getting more performance and more range, faster charging over time for lower prices. And that is the key that will actually shift us to a fully sustainable energy future. is that we need all those things. We need this new technology to be superior in every way to gasoline powered vehicles. And this is just another data point in the curve showing that the further down the road we get, the more and more competitive EVs are going to be relative to ICE vehicles. They're going to be cheaper, they're going to be faster, they're going to be sexier, they're going to have better technology, they're going to be easier to charge, they're going to be faster to charge, they're going to go farther, they're going to have more power, all these things. And so people who have failed to recognize this in the past, like at some point, this is just going to be completely undisputable.
Exactly. I love it. The ICE gas combustible engine has been around for over hundreds of years, 100 years, and they've pretty well maxed out their rate limit of how much more they can improve the combustion. But the batteries is just starting. And so new chemistries, new ability to make it fast charging. I just love what you just said. So CATL's not the only company making advancements. Of course, we all know that Tesla has their 4680 batteries. The 4680 batteries, we know it's taken a lot longer than what they were promising at Battery Day, but it's starting to move, right? With 20 million cells that they just announced recently. So we finally got, I love this. I always wait for limiting factor. Jordan Kazigi, who's the expert in batteries, he basically explained that the 4680 ramp was going to reduce the cost of a Tesla vehicle by $2,200 to $5,700 per vehicle. That's significant. That's great. So that's what can happen. He walks us through how that math happens. So he said that right now, the average pack size of a Tesla vehicle is 75 kilowatt hours. And if it costs us about $100 per kilowatt hours right now, then each pack it's costing for the car $7,500 per car. But with the 4680, they could probably bring that down to $70 per kilowatt hour, which is the latest news info that Tesla released. So that's going to bring down the pack cost to $5,250 instead of $7,500. Now, if you add the IRA tax credit, that's going to bring it down to a peak cost of $1,750. So that's a cost savings of $5,750 per vehicle is what we're expecting to happen here. Now, his caveats is that it's going to take a couple years. Tesla needs to spool up about 3 to 4 more lines to cover the current U.S. demand. And this assumes that IRA isn't canceled. Tesla can fully take advantage of the tax credits. And the savings will only apply to vehicles using the 4680 packs, which I expect to eventually be all U.S. vehicles. Even if the savings is only $30 for the in-house produced 4680 packs, and no tax credits, the savings is still $2,250 per vehicle. Whoa. Okay. So that's pretty significant. I know that every $5,000 reduction in price, it's a huge uptake in the ability for the TAM to go up. Yeah. Thoughts on this?
Yeah. So there's two different directions we can go with this. One of them is, so Cybertruck's battery is going to be much larger than that. And so the every $30 per kilowatt hour, that has a much larger impact the larger the battery is on the overall COGS of a Cybertruck. And that's without the IRA tax incentives. I think that the vast majority of all 4680 cells in the near term are going to be allocated towards the Cybertruck ramp up. And so the math that Jordan shared will be a little bit skewed just because the base size of the pack will be much larger. That said, it does, I think the reason that he focused on a 75 kilowatt hour pack is because that really should be the maximum for the Gen 2 platform, or sorry, the Gen 3 platform. And, if we see 4680s used in that ramp up, you're talking about a COGS reduction that really makes that $20,000 to $25,000 starting price for a non FSD enabled Gen 2 or Gen 3 vehicle should be very, very, very possible. Like the battery cost on that will be probably lower, honestly, than an equivalent ICE powertrain. And that's the hardest part of the COGS thing to get right when you're trying to build a mass manufactured, low cost, low barrier to entry vehicle. And so it really sets us up in a great position for those vehicles.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hans. Appreciate this. Follow Hans at Hans C. Nelson on YouTube and on Twitter. Thank you, everybody.